Actually, I feel like I've been bringing these up. Kim, is there one that you want to like touch on and sort of just like say, oh yeah, this is something that really resonated with me? Because I know I've got one I want to touch on here in a moment.
Um, I hope it's not the same one.
Oh,
Uh,
I would love it if it were.
the one that I wanted to touch on is not that much farther than what we're talking about. It's 1837, the one where her mom makes the comment, that I thought that, you are going to have, these problems and that, and I'm trying to think of the exact words she had said,
Like
and that
you don't really care
you don't
about what
really
people
care.
think about you,
And
and
now
and that seemed to be a problem, and now that seems to
but
work for
now that
you.
doesn't really see that really seems to work for you. And it's just like this was her, and her botna was there from the very beginning. It's been strong. She's held to it. I mean, she ate a bee for, you know, to get students to really lock on. And even when she goes to the board to get the
Yeah,
the power to fire people, like that was already part of
yeah,
her mission from step one, because she had mentioned it, I think, once
yeah,
before it had even happened, about like, I want to say 7 to 8 minutes before she had gotten into that meeting with the mayor. Like
yeah. She
her just
clearly, yeah, and they talked to a couple of principals too, that to try
yeah,
and who are with her, right? There's a couple
yeah,
of other people who are very much on her side. And there is a distinct perspective that it's like, it's her versus these teachers. It's her versus tenure. It's her, versus the entrenched people in the system. And don't
right,
get me wrong. Like, I absolutely understand the way that we can get bureaucratically entrenched,
right,
right? But at what point in dealing with human beings and people do you try to build some sort of consensus around what the actual problem is?
right.
Like we never see her go to the families and say, your kids deserve better. And right now we're having problems because we have teachers that aren't serving them. And when they actually do talk to the kids, something that jumped out at me is that the kids that they get quotes from are purely almost all talking about classroom management issues,
Right.
right? And the sense of like, oh well, kids are out of, the kids in our school are out of control. There's drugs, there's violence, there are these things. It's really difficult and stressful, and there's these things from the community coming in, and it's like there's an acknowledgement of these issues.
Right. And even
But
the teachers talk about that at some point, that
yeah,
yes, you have to raise the test scores, but the test scores aren't going to finish the trauma that these children come to school with. And, there's no there's no taking account into that. But for Michelle Rhee, I think there was no mutual, and Yuri talks about mutual gain. There's no mutual gain to her addressing those things, but there is a mutual gain, a win-win, as opposed to a win-lose for these schools that get on board and, raise the test scores and follow her path.
and
She had
that's
that big
and that's where
conference.
they're using these big financial incentives where they're giving money away.
Right.
And I think we do need to wrap up, but of course, like it's
Yes.
like, so she's made the tests themselves the almost singular metric by which they examine the efficacy of teachers, the efficacy of
Hmm.
schools, the efficacy of the system in every way. And at no point do they question the validity or the whether or not those tests can actually provide that data in the way that they can.
Hmm.
And in the process of making those tests incredibly high stakes, surprise, surprise, there is indication that there is perhaps cheating, and that there's erasing of that there's the indication of erasing of test scores and putting in the correct answers and stuff.
Right.
And we have to be clear that that was never actually like said, there was no smoking gun, but what they did find was that there was far more erasures than should ever exist on a test like this,
Yeah.
unless that sort of thing was happening. Like the chances of it being a natural effect of the students just rethinking their work across the board, um, the likelihood of that happening is like hitting the lottery multiple times, I think is
Yeah.
what one of the analysts says.
Yeah, and I feel like that was the
Um,
one instance where she was like learning, like Yuri says, learning to let go, letting
yeah,
go of, everything. And that's the one thing she just let go. That she was
yeah,
just like, well, there could have been, very,
yeah. Yeah, she very Pontius Pilate like washes her hands of the whole thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like it's like, well, there's a commission. I approve the commission. What do you want? And
Yeah.
that she's very much separated, and that and like of course like this everything comes to a head, and the mayor who has tied himself to her into these changes, and the teachers union gets together, and multiple organizations and families are coming together in opposition to
Hmm.
what she's doing. And to me it's also still a big problem, because it's not that raising test scores is inherently bad. Like, we do want to see test scores go up. However, it's the manner in which she goes about it, and the lack of negotiation, the lack of consensus building, that then brings down this whole kind of house of cards.
Right. Yeah.
And really, and the thing is at the end of the day, who does it cost the most? And my concern is that the kids are paying for this win, lose, or die approach.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of thing. Well, Kim, do you have any like final thoughts on this before we go?
Um, I mean,
Oh no. Okay, actually,
it's
it
such a hard thing
froze
to
for
wrap
a sec.
my head around
If
because
Yeah, go ahead.
it's such a hard thing for me to wrap my head around because Yuri is very much business, but yet
Yeah,
I can see where it could be helpful as a in leadership to be able to use some of the things because unfortunately education has become what sort of like to be treated as a
business.
business. And
And it's a social program.
right.
You know.
And then I see Michelle Rhee and I'm thinking from the first bat, God, she's hardcore. That's just not how education works. But yet, regardless of how she got her results, she had buy-in.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
granted, it was because people were scared. People,
yeah. I think we didn't touch on that enough, about the way in which that she engages actively, is there to instill and activate people's fear as a form
yeah,
of motivation. And
yeah,
something that's been really a big part of the discussions around education recently is teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions.
yeah.
And at a certain point, like, if kids are performing in school and they're performing, let's say they are performing better on tests, but if they're performing that way because they are scared and out of fear and out of a desire to keep themselves safe, is that really educative?
Right. And I think Yuri I forget what
Yeah.
chapter is it, chapter 2, chapter 3, power of reframing, right? That we have two different choices of how to come at a situation or negotiation. And one is, do we approach the negotiation as an adversarial contest in which one party
Yes.
wins and one loses? Or do we approach as an opportunity for collaborative problem solving, a win-win? For me, and this could just be me, Michelle Rhee was coming at it adversarial, and everything
Yeah.
was a win lose with her winning and getting the
Yeah.
numbers that she wanted and the results that she wanted, no matter how she got those results.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-oh. Okay. I think we do have to wrap this up because our internet is saying no.
oh no.
Um, but yeah, and I do want to take half a moment to bring in a little bit of Brene Brown, who has also been a part of
Yes.
our work of late and consideration. We were primarily focused on this lens of Yuri, but Brene Brown, one of the key things that she talks about is shame.
Hmm.
And there is this moment where they are talking about this one principle that Michelle Rhee is championing
Yes, yes.
as doing the best by his kids, and they show a scene of him running into a student in the hall who's supposed to be in class or has been out, is not in class, and he believes he should be. And he proceeds to shame that child. And you can just see this child wilt and become compliant and shameful in his presence. and,
Right.
get joint, be admitted back into the class. And that, I think that just speaks a whole volumes again about how, this sense of fear and do it my way and get
Mhm.
it done and test scores are the only thing that matters, that then in many ways it actually undoes and undermines the very things that you need and want within a functionally social institution.
Yeah, correct. I completely agree with that. I saw that scene too, and I was just like, ah, that's just not how, yeah, shame came to mind, definitely.
Well, thanks so much, Kim, for joining in this conversation tonight. It was really awesome. We're going to put this up on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. If you're watching this and you have any questions or comments, please leave us comments. We would love to hear. We can even we'll do our best to respond. Also, you can go find us on TikTok. I don't think YouTube takes down our videos if we say the word TikTok.
I don't think so.
At Let's Talk LETSTOK Ed Research, which is the same channel that you'll see here. And there we have a lot of back and forth, and Kim will be joining us for an additional project there that you might see if you come across this video. So thanks so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.